Montana Territory, 1873. The shadows of the Bitterroot Mountains stretched long across Logan Iverson's ranch as dusk painted the western sky in hues of amber and gold. At 25, Logan had already carved out a respectable homestead from the untamed wilderness. 300 acres, a modest herd of cattle, and a sturdy two-room cabin he'd built with his own hands. His face, though handsome with its strong jaw and clear blue eyes, rarely broke into a smile. The mountains had taken his father in an avalanche and the cholera his mother, leaving him with the unshakable conviction that the frontier demanded solitude. Love was a luxury men like him couldn't afford, not when survival claimed every waking hour. The land takes everything eventually, he often muttered to himself while mending fences or breaking horses. Best not to give it anything more to take. Logan moved through his days with mechanical precision, each season blending into the next without companionship beyond his livestock and occasional business in the nearby settlement of Whitefish Creek. His dreams of expanding his ranch remained purely practical. More land meant more cattle, more security against the harsh winters. He told himself it was enough. Yet sometimes, in the quiet evenings when wind whispered through the pines, a hollowness would settle in his chest that no amount of whiskey could fill. He'd stare into the hearth fire, feeling the weight of empty chairs around his table, hearing phantom echoes of laughter that had never filled his home. But by morning, he'd harden himself again. The frontier was no place for sentiment. One cool April morning, Logan noticed something peculiar about his young Chester white sow, Daisy. She'd been a runt he'd rescued from certain death the previous winter, bottle-feeding her until she grew strong enough to join his small collection of livestock. Now fully grown but still smaller than his other pigs, she had developed an unusual habit. "What in tarnation are you doing, girl?" Logan asked, leaning on his fence as he watched Daisy digging determinedly at the same patch of earth near the eastern corner of her pen, day after day. The behavior persisted through planting season and into the early summer, the pig returning to that same spot with single-minded focus. Logan might have continued to dismiss it as an animal oddity had fate not intervened on a stormy June afternoon. The clouds had gathered ominously all morning, and by midday, the sky had darkened to an unnatural twilight. Lightning split the heavens as Logan rushed to secure his property against the coming deluge. He was wrestling a loose shutter when he heard an unfamiliar sound carrying through the wind, the distant whinny of a horse in distress. Following the sound, Logan spotted a covered wagon tilted dangerously on the muddy track leading to his property. One wheel had slid into a gully, and the horse was panicking, threatening to tip the entire vehicle. Without hesitation, Logan sprinted toward it, rain pelting his face. "Whoa there! Easy now," he called to the frightened animal. From inside the wagon emerged a young woman, soaked to the skin, her gray traveling dress plastered to her slender frame. She was attempting to calm the horse, while simultaneously keeping her balance on the slippery ground. "Thank goodness," she exclaimed when she saw Logan. "I thought we might be stranded out here until morning." Logan's breath caught in his throat. She couldn't have been more than 20 summers, with striking chestnut hair falling in damp waves around a face that belonged in a city parlor, not the rugged Montana wilderness. Her eyes, the deep green of pine needles, met his with surprising steadiness. "What are you doing out here alone, ma'am?" he asked gruffly, already moving to secure the horse. "I'm Willow Zimmerman," she answered, pushing her wet hair from her face. "I've come to join my uncle, Joseph Zimmerman. His homestead should be nearby." Logan froze, one hand still on the horse's bridle. "Joseph Zimmerman passed last winter, ma'am. Pneumonia took him before the snow even melted." The color drained from Willow's face, and for a moment, Logan thought she might faint. Instead, she squared her shoulders and swallowed hard. "Are you certain? I received a letter from him just 2 months ago inviting me to come help with his homestead. Letters take time out here," Logan explained, gentler now. "I helped bury him myself." "I'm sorry." The rain intensified, and lightning cracked overhead. "We need to get you somewhere dry," Logan said. "My place is just over that rise. We can sort everything out once this storm passes." With Logan's help, they unhitched the horse and secured the wagon as best they could. He led her to his cabin, acutely aware of her shivering form beside him. Once inside, he built up the fire, and awkwardly offered her a dry shirt and trousers that would swallow her small frame. "It's not proper, but it's better than pneumonia," he said, turning his back to give her privacy. "I'll make some coffee." When she emerged from behind the makeshift screen he'd arranged, Logan was struck by how the oversized clothing somehow made her seem both younger and more vulnerable. Yet there was something in her eyes, determination, perhaps, that belied any notion of fragility. "My uncle's homestead," she began, warming her hands around the coffee mug. "What's become of it?" Logan shifted uncomfortably. "It's been abandoned since his passing. The county will claim it for back taxes soon enough." He hesitated. "Why would a young lady like yourself come all the way from Boston?" she supplied. "And I came because there's nothing left for me there. My parents died in a fire last year. Uncle Joseph was my only remaining family, and he wrote that I could make a new start here." A single tear escaped down her cheek, which she quickly brushed away. Logan felt something crack in the carefully constructed walls around his heart, a hairline fracture of recognition. Here was someone else the frontier had left alone. "You can stay here tonight," he offered, the words surprising even himself. "Tomorrow we can figure out how to get you back east." Willow straightened her spine. "I'm not going back. There's nothing there for me. And there's nothing here but hard work and heartbreak," Logan countered. "Then it won't be any different from what I've already known," she replied with quiet dignity. Logan couldn't argue with that logic. They fell into an uneasy silence, the storm raging outside, while an unfamiliar tension built within the cabin that had never before sheltered a woman's presence. The following morning dawned clear and bright. Logan rose early as was his habit and found Willow already awake, attempting to cook breakfast from his meager supplies. The domesticity of the scene startled him. How quickly the space seemed transformed by her presence. "I thought I should earn my keep," she explained, noticing his surprise. Over the meal, they discussed practical matters. The nearest town with regular stagecoach service was a 3-day journey. With no family to return to and limited funds, Willow had few options. "I could work for you," she suggested, "at least until I earn enough for passage elsewhere or figure out what to do about Uncle Joseph's claim." Logan's instinct was to refuse immediately. A young, unmarried woman living on his homestead would create talk. More importantly, letting someone into his life meant risk, the risk of caring, of loss. Before he could formulate a response, they were interrupted by frantic squealing from the pigpen. Logan rushed outside to find Daisy in obvious distress, still pawing desperately at her favorite digging spot. "What's wrong with her?" Willow asked, following close behind. "I don't rightly know. She's been digging at that same spot for weeks now." Logan entered the pen, concerned. The pig had never shown signs of illness before. Willow knelt by the fence. "My father raised pigs when I was young. Sometimes they get fixated on things." As they watched, Daisy's hooves scraped against something that made a distinctly unearth-like sound. Logan frowned and moved closer. "There's something under there," he murmured, kneeling in the mud. Using his hands, he excavated where Daisy had been digging, uncovering what appeared to be a metal edge. "Is that a box?" Willow asked, now entering the pen herself. Working together, they unearthed a small iron strongbox, crusted with dirt but intact. Logan looked at Daisy with newfound respect. "How did you know this was here, old girl?" "Pigs can smell things buried deep underground," Willow explained. "They're used to hunt truffles in Europe." The box had no lock, just a simple latch corroded by time and elements. Inside, they found several folded documents, a leather pouch, and a daguerreotype of a young couple. "That's Uncle Joseph," Willow gasped, pointing to the man in the image. But who was the woman? He never mentioned a wife. Logan carefully unfolded one of the documents. "This appears to be a marriage certificate. Joseph Zimmerman and—" He squinted at the faded writing. "Elizabeth Iverson." The name hit Logan like a physical blow. "Iverson? That's my surname. Could they be related to you?" Willow asked. "My father had a sister named Elizabeth," Logan said slowly, memories stirring. "She left for the East when I was very young. There was some kind of falling out with my grandfather. No one spoke of her afterward." They opened the leather pouch next, finding a collection of gold coins and a simple gold band. The remaining documents included land deeds, not just for Joseph's homestead, but for the adjoining properties as well, including the very land they were standing on. "These deeds," Logan said, his voice hoarse with shock. They're in both their names. According to this, half of my ranch rightfully belongs to Elizabeth Iverson Zimmerman or her heirs. Their eyes met across the strongbox, the implications hanging between them. If Elizabeth was Logan's aunt, and she had married Willow's uncle, then we're connected, Willow whispered. Not by blood, but by marriage. These properties were meant to be joined, Logan said, examining the survey maps. Look at how they fit together. Your uncle's land has the water rights I've always needed, and mine has the timber his lacks. For the first time, Logan wondered if the persistent loneliness of his existence hadn't been entirely the frontier's doing, but partly his own. Here was evidence that his family had attempted to build connections, to create something lasting beyond mere survival. The discovery changed everything. Legally, ethically, Logan couldn't send Willow away, not when she had a legitimate claim to part of what he'd always considered his land. But beyond that, he found himself not wanting to. Something about her presence filled a void he'd refused to acknowledge for years. I suppose we'll need to figure out an arrangement, he said carefully, for managing the properties together. Willow smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. I suppose we will. In the weeks that followed, they fell into an uneasy partnership. Logan showed Willow the basics of ranch operations, while she introduced improvements to the household that transformed his Spartan cabin into something approaching a home. Word spread quickly through the scattered community about the young woman living at the Iverson Ranch, bringing both curiosity and judgment. You'll ruin her reputation, warned Harold Meeks, the general store owner, when Logan came to town for supplies. It's a business arrangement, Logan insisted. She has legal claim to part of the property. The territory doesn't look kindly on such arrangements, Meeks replied pointedly. Marriage or separate households are your only proper options. The suggestion of marriage sent Logan into a panic. He'd successfully avoided entanglements for years, convinced that the frontier would eventually take anyone he cared about. Yet each evening as he watched Willow move about the cabin, humming softly while preparing dinner or mending clothes by lamplight, something inside him began to shift. For her part, Willow proved surprisingly capable. She learned to milk the cows, tend the vegetable garden, and even assist with the more demanding ranch tasks. Her presence brought order and warmth to Logan's existence. Fresh curtains appeared in the windows, wildflowers on the table, and meals became events to anticipate rather than necessities to endure. One evening in late July, they sat on the porch watching fireflies rise from the tall grass as dusk settled over the mountains. Willow had been unusually quiet all day. I received a letter from Boston today, she finally said. My former employer has offered me my position back as a schoolteacher. Logan felt as though someone had punched him in the stomach. Are you considering it? I should, she replied softly. My reputation here is compromised simply by living in your home, unmarried. I have few prospects in that regard. You have your claim to the land, Logan argued, surprised by his own vehemence. Land doesn't keep a woman warm at night or give her children, Willow said, a flush rising to her cheeks at her own boldness. Logan looked away, unable to meet her gaze. The thought of her leaving created a panic he hadn't anticipated. In just weeks, she had become essential to his world. Yet his fear of loss remained paralyzing. When would you go? He asked, his voice rougher than intended. The stage comes through Whitefish Creek next week. Before Logan could respond, a distant flash of torchlight appeared on the road leading to the ranch. As it drew closer, they could make out 3 riders approaching at speed. Stay inside, Logan ordered, reaching for the rifle he kept by the door. I will not, Willow countered, though she did step behind him as the riders entered the yard. Logan recognized Thomas Blackwell, a cattle baron who had been trying to buy out smaller ranchers in the valley. With him were 2 rough-looking men Logan had never seen before. Iverson, Blackwell called, remaining mounted. I've come to make you another offer for this land. Not interested, Blackwell. Same as last time. Circumstances have changed, Blackwell replied, his gaze sliding to Willow. I understand you've got yourself an unmarried woman living here. Most inappropriate. The community might start to wonder about her virtue. Logan's grip tightened on his rifle. Say what you came to say, and then get off my property. The railroad's coming through, Blackwell announced. Survey crews have already plotted the route. It'll cut right through the valley, right through the Zimmerman property, as a matter of fact. Logan and Willow exchanged glances. The railroad would make their combined properties immensely valuable, or a target for those with power and influence. I'm authorized to offer you $3,000 for both parcels, Blackwell continued. More than generous, considering the unusual circumstances of your living arrangements. The land isn't for sale, Logan stated firmly. Blackwell's expression hardened. Don't be a fool, Iverson. No one can stand against the railroad. If you don't sell willingly, there are other ways to acquire property, especially when its ownership is questionable. Are you threatening us? Willow stepped forward, her voice unwavering. Just stating facts, ma'am. Unmarried women rarely fare well in property disputes in these parts, and men who live alone tend to have unfortunate accidents. After delivering this thinly veiled threat, Blackwell tipped his hat with mock courtesy. Think on it. My offer stands for 3 days. After that, I can't guarantee your continued well-being or the safety of your property. As the riders disappeared into the darkness, Logan and Willow stood in stunned silence. The peaceful existence they'd been building suddenly seemed precarious. He'll be back, Logan said grimly. And not alone. That night, neither could sleep. They discussed options until dawn, selling and starting over elsewhere, fighting Blackwell's claim, seeking legal protection. None seemed viable against the combined power of wealthy cattle interests and railroad money. There is another option, Willow said hesitantly as the first light of dawn filtered through the windows. We could marry. Logan stared at her, his heart hammering in his chest. Marriage isn't something to enter into for convenience, isn't it? Most marriages on the frontier begin that way, she countered. Two people with common interests, joining forces to survive. You deserve better than a marriage of convenience to a man who can barely hold a conversation, Logan said bitterly. Willow touched his hand, her fingers warm against his. Is that all it would be? Convenience. The question hung between them, demanding a truth Logan had been avoiding for weeks. The frontier had taught him that attachment led to pain, but it had also brought Willow to his doorstep and revealed connections he never knew existed. Before he could answer, gunshots shattered the morning quiet. They rushed outside to see smoke rising from the direction of the northern pasture. Logan grabbed his rifle and horse, ordering Willow to stay put and bar the doors. I'm coming with you, she insisted, already saddling her own mount. It's too dangerous. This is my land too, she reminded him. They rode hard toward the smoke, finding the northern fence line cut and a hay storage barn ablaze. Even worse, several cattle lay dead, deliberately shot. This was no accident. It was Blackwell sending a message. As they worked to contain the fire, Logan saw the trap too late. 3 riders emerged from the tree line, rifles raised. Blackwell hadn't waited 3 days after all. Down, Logan shouted, pushing Willow behind the well as bullets splintered wood around them. They were pinned down and outnumbered. Logan returned fire, but knew their position was untenable. When I give the signal, run for those trees, he instructed Willow. I'll cover you. I won't leave you, she said fiercely. This isn't a debate, Logan hissed. I can't let anything happen to you. Why? She demanded, even as bullets continued to fly overhead. Because I love you. The words erupted from him, surprising them both. God help me. I've tried not to, but I do. Willow's eyes widened, but before she could respond, one of the attackers cried out in pain. A new volley of gunfire came from behind the raiders, but not aimed at Logan and Willow. Instead, their attackers were now under fire from newcomers. Iverson, you alive? Called a familiar voice. Jensen, is that you? Logan called back, recognizing his nearest neighbor. Got half the valley here. Word came that Blackwell was planning to run you off. The tide turned quickly. Outgunned and surrounded, Blackwell's men surrendered, though Blackwell himself managed to escape in the confusion. As the smoke cleared, Logan was astonished to see nearly a dozen neighboring ranchers and farmers who had come to their aid. Men he'd barely spoken to in years had ridden through the night after hearing rumors of Blackwell's plans. Why? He asked Jensen, bewildered by this unexpected alliance. If Blackwell can run you off, we're all next, the older man explained. Besides, your father was good to mine during the harsh winter of '59. Some debts don't expire. It dawned on Logan that while he had been isolating himself all these years, the connections his family had formed remained. The frontier wasn't solely a place of loss and solitude. it was also a place where people depended on one another to survive. In the aftermath, as neighbors helped repair fences and salvage what they could from the barn, Willow pulled Logan aside. "Did you mean what you said?" During the gunfight, Logan met her eyes, finally ready to embrace the truth. "Yes, I've been fighting it since you arrived, but yes, I love you, Willow. The thought of losing you, to Boston or to Blackwell, made me realize how empty my life was before you." "Then ask me properly," she said softly. There, amid the charred timber and muddied earth, with neighbors looking on, Logan knelt and took her hand. "Willow Zimmerman, will you marry me? Not for convenience or property or protection, but because I can't imagine another day without you." "Yes," she answered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Because I love you too." They were married 2 days later in Whitefish Creek, the entire community turning out to witness their union. The county judge expedited matters, particularly after hearing about Blackwell's threats. With their marriage, the properties were legally joined, strengthening their position against any future challenges. Blackwell wasn't finished with them, of course. He attempted to challenge the land titles, claiming irregularities in the documentation. But the strongbox Daisy had unearthed contained more than just deeds. It held letters between Joseph and Elizabeth detailing their intentions for the properties, along with records of taxes paid. The case against them collapsed. By the following spring, their lives had transformed completely. The cabin had expanded to include 2 additional rooms. The combined properties flourished under their joint management. Logan's cattle operation complemented by Willow's introduction of apple orchards and expanded gardens. One evening, as they sat on their expanded porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains, Willow took Logan's hand and placed it gently on her slightly rounded belly. "Are you certain?" he asked, wonder and fear mingling in his voice. "The doctor confirmed it yesterday," she smiled. "By winter, there will be 3 of us." Logan pulled her close, overwhelmed by emotions he once would have suppressed. "I never thought I could have this," he confessed. "I was so certain the frontier only took, that loving someone meant eventually losing them." "The frontier gives as much as it takes," Willow said, leaning into his embrace. "It gave me you when I had lost everything else." In the pig pen nearby, old Daisy watched contentedly as her newest litter of piglets romped in the spring mud. Logan often joked that she deserved a special place of honor for her role in bringing him and Willow together. "What do you think she was really looking for?" Willow asked, watching the pig that had changed their lives. "Maybe she wasn't looking for something," Logan replied thoughtfully. "Maybe she was showing us what was missing." As twilight deepened into night, they remained on the porch, talking of the future, not just surviving it, but building it together. The frontier that Logan had once seen as his prison had become the foundation for a life richer than he had ever imagined possible. In the distance, a train whistle echoed through the valley. The railroad that Blackwell had threatened them with now brought mail and visitors more regularly, connecting their remote homestead to the wider world rather than destroying it. "Do you ever regret not returning to Boston?" Logan asked, a question that occasionally still nagged at him. Willow smiled and shook her head. "How could I regret finding exactly where I belong? This is home, Logan. You are home." As stars appeared in the vast Montana sky, they held each other close, no longer 2 solitary figures battling the wilderness alone, but partners who had discovered that even on the untamed frontier, love wasn't a luxury. It was the essential foundation upon which everything else was built.